Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, Kesubos Mem Gimel. We are holding 6 lines from the top of the Amud. Says the Gemara, Boy Minei Rabbi Yehuda. He asked a Shaila Mirav Sheshes. The question was as follows: Bas hanezoines mina achen. So we know that typically a daughter's earnings will go to her father in exchange for his supporting her. So that's the deal. Father supports his daughter, even though he doesn't necessarily have to support his daughter. It's not really an absolute chiyuv. He does so out of the generosity of his heart, and it's pretty accepted. It's a pretty accepted norm. So the Torah, the Chachamim, likewise directed her earnings to the father. So he keeps her earnings as he's feeding her. Now, what happens if father passes away and the halacha is, it's a Tanai Ksuva, it's part of the Ksuva stipulations. Upon the man's passing, his daughter will be supported from his estate. So now it's her and her brothers. And they are supporting her from their father's estate. What happens to her earnings at this point? Does she keep it? Or does it go to the brothers who are technically supporting her, but actually it's not their money, it's their father's. And it's due to the Tanai Ksuba that they are doing so. So that's an interesting shayla. Again, a daughter who is currently receiving her support from her brothers after her father's passing. Where do we direct her earnings? Are the brothers now substituting for her father, and therefore just as if father was present, the her earnings would go to her father. They receive her masiyadaim. Or perhaps there's no comparison between brothers and father, because when father is supporting, it's his own personal funds that he's using to support her. Of course, he deserves her masiyadaim in exchange for his support. Over here, when the brothers are involved, she's not accepting their personal mizonis. It's their joint father's estate that is supporting her. So which way is it? Amalei Rav Sheshes responds, actually he says there's no difference. Her ma'aseh yadayim will go to her brothers who are currently looking after her. Amalei Tanisua, we have a Mishnah, Almana Nizoinis, Minichse Yisayimim. So this too is part of the Tanai Ksuba, part of the Ksuba stipulations. A person passes away and his almana, his widow, continues being supported from his estate until she remarries. Almana Nizoinis, she gets her mizonis, she gets her support. B'nichse Yisayimim, from the possessions of the Yisayimim. U'mas yadeh shelahen. And where do her masiyadayim go? To them? Apparently, masiyadayim belong to the fellow who's supporting you, irrespective of why, irrespective of the motive, whether or not it's his own personal generosity being expressed or it's due to a Tanai Ksuba. And therefore, says Rav Sheshes, the same by daughter with her brothers. Midamim, how do you compare the two? Says the Gemara. Big difference between the almana and the daughter. Almana, if it's his widow, loy nichalei, he's not so motivated b'harvacha to facilitate extra income for his widow. She can manage with just basics. So in that case, the understanding is that she should direct her earnings to the brothers, not to her brothers, to the Yisayimim who are supporting her, as opposed to Bita. If it's a question of his daughter being supported by her brothers, Nichale Baravacha, he's looking after her, he'd like her to save up some extra money. She can have it for the future. So in that case, perhaps he's not really interested that she forward her earnings to the brothers. But apparently Rav Sheshes is of the opinion We don't differentiate. Whoever supports you deserves your earnings, whether it's the almana and the yisaimim or the bitay with the achin. Remember the bitay adifa limalmanase. Do you mean to say that he's looking after his daughter more than his almana? Is that what you mean to say? He's interested that his daughter puts together some savings, but he doesn't have that same concern with his widow. We seem to find that it's actually the other way around, because he said like this: Asu almana itzel abbas. The Chachamim treated a widow relative to the daughter, kebas etzel achen, just like a daughter relative to the brothers. Benuchasim mu'atim, when there are very few possessions left behind after his passing. Let's say there isn't enough in this fellow's estate to support everybody for 12 months. That's called nuchasim mu'atim. So things are tight. What do we do now? Who takes priority? The halacha is that the daughter takes priority over her brothers. She supports herself from whatever she can find, and the brothers will have to go collect for themselves. Boys are more capable of doing that. That's part of the ksuba arrangement. That's the takanas chazal. There's not enough to go around. Daughter gets priority. And likewise, says Rabbi Yesi, also almana itzel habas. Let's say there's a fellow who passed away, left behind a wife and a daughter. The almana stands higher. She takes priority. There isn't enough to go around. She gets first. And the daughter has to look after herself. Almana with a bas is like kibas etzel achen, like a sister amongst her brothers, that she gets priority over them. Oh, and the Gemara explains itself. Ma habas etzel achen, just like when there is a bas with her brothers, and there are only nechas and mu'atan, what happens? She stands higher. Habas nizonis, she gets mizonis. So achen and her brothers, yishalu al psachim, they'll go around and collect alms, they'll look after themselves. Af almana itzel habas, likewise. He left behind a widow and a daughter. Who stands higher? Almana nizonis. The almana takes what she needs. Va'abas tishal al psachim, and the daughter has to go look for her help. Apparently, a fellow has a greater interest in accommodating his almana than his daughter. And this is in contrast to what you told me before, that he's more interested in his daughter earning that extra money than he would for his widow. Answers the Gemara, the big difference here. Le'inin zelusa, when it comes to shame and embarrassment, such as collecting for yourself, almanase adifale, by the almana, he's more concerned for her, to protect her honor, an older woman, a respectable woman. He wants her to be provided for and have the daughter have to look after herself. But le'inin harvacha, when it comes to adding and earning extra, putting away some savings, bitoy adifale, in that case, it's the other way around. The young girl here, she has a life ahead of her. She should have extra to put away for herself. And therefore, perhaps, when it's her and the brothers, and there's enough to go around, that they Amar Farnes her, she should be giving them the Masi Yadayim, just as she gave her father when he supported her. So bottom line is, that's Rav Shesh's opinion. Abbas, that's in Zoynes Mina Achin, Masi Yadayim Achin. Masar Rav Yosef. He has the kasha from our Mishnah. The Mishnah in the beginning of the parak. So we have her earnings and an item that she may have found. Even though she perhaps did not even collect her paycheck yet, at that point, if father passes away, the brothers assume rights to these payments, to these earnings. That's the Mishnah. It's pretty clear. This halacha is only applicable if she earned this money during her father's lifetime. So she earned it when he was alive. It's meant to go to him. He passes on. It gets passed on to the kids. Apparently, if she earned it after his passing, la'atzmo, and she keeps it. My love ben azonis. Perhaps we're speaking, even though they're supporting her. We see from here, even if brothers are supporting the sister, she keeps her earnings. That's a kasha of Sheshus. No, b'she'ena nazonis. We're speaking that they're not supporting her. There were no nechasim. There were no funds left behind. In that case, she'll keep it. That's not the topic of our conversation. We're speaking if they're supporting her. But certainly if they're not supporting, they don't deserve her earnings. And that's what the Mishnah is saying. If she would have earned after father's passing and there is no support available, of course she keeps it. Asks the Gemara, that's obvious. You don't need a Mishnah for that. If we are speaking that she is not being supported, why even discuss this? Isn't this obvious? You don't support me, of course I keep my earnings. How else am I meant to look after myself? Even according to that shita in Bava Metzia, which holds Yochel Harav, that a master can go ahead and Loimar Le'eved, turn to his Eved Kanani and say, Asei me, work for me, I'm not supporting you. You have to look after yourself. Even according to that shita, sure, that's by Eved. Eved Kanani. That's by Eved Kanani. Like Imach, where the Torah does not mention the word Imach, which indicates that you have to treat him like yourself. Aval Eved Ivri, but if he's a Jewish slave, the Imach, where the pasuk says you have to treat him as yourself, well, of course you can't just mistreat him like that. Of course, your own daughter. So if she's not getting support, of course she deserves her earnings. Why would the Mishnah even speak about that? Amar Rabba Bar Ula. So Rabbi answered, you know why the Mishnah would have to speak about this? We're speaking again that they're not supporting her. And the chiddush is she can keep her earnings. Like we're speaking Elul Hadaf, the extra earnings, above what she needs to support herself. So perhaps that extra they deserve. And the chiddush is no, she keeps that as well. Amar Rav. Ga'ava Rabbi Rav Yosef, a great man like Rav Yosef Layada, he asked from this Mishnah. Right? He used this Mishnah as a kasha on Rav Sheshus. Well, we see from the Mishnah that the Mas Yadayim, after the father's passing, the Mas Yadayim, she keeps. He didn't know that we could answer this teretz on the Mishnah, that we're speaking that nobody's supporting her, and the chiddush is that she can keep the extra, the extra income, which she doesn't really need for her basic needs. He didn't know that we could explain that Mishnah speaking about that case, and that's the chiddush of the Mishnah. But K'maisiv to Yifta, we see he still asked the kasha from the Mishnah. Against Rav Sheshus. Why was it a kasha? A great man like Rav Yosef couldn't just figure out this teretz? That this Mishnah is unrelated to Rav Sheshus. Rav Sheshus is speaking when the brothers are supporting her. This Mishnah is speaking, there is no support. And the chiddush is that, the extra stuff that she doesn't really need for her basic needs, I would think that goes to the brothers. No, that she keeps. Perhaps that's the chiddush of the Mishnah. So why was Rav Yosef asking from this Mishnah on Rav Sheshus? Ela Marava, Rav Yosef masnisin gufa kashile. I'll tell you what Rav Yosef's kasha was from the actual wording of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Mas yadeh u'mitziyasa. We pair together earnings and her findings. Even though she didn't really collect these things yet and didn't really, have it in hand, still it belongs to the father, and then the father passes away, it goes to the children. The question is, the word collection, having it in your hand, that pertains more to earnings than to something you find in the street. Mitziyasaf, something that you found. Miman Gavya, what do you mean she collected it? She didn't collect it. Who do you collect the Mitziyah from? Elalav, Hachikamer. So apparently, the Mishnah was trying to highlight something. to connect masya deo kemetziasa, to connect earnings to findings, and to teach us a lesson. Ma metziasa b'chaye av la'av, just like vayemetzia. So although during father's lifetime, something she finds goes to the father, but la'achar misasa av la'atzma, after her father's passing, she finds something, she keeps it. Why? Why is this so obvious? So actually says the whole point, the whole reason why a father gets his daughter's mitzvah is to avoid tension and animosity. Mishum Eva, says Rashi. Let's see Rashi inside. It's about 3-4 lines down. Ma mitzvah. The mitzvah pshita land la'atzma. It's clear that a mitzvah she would keep if there's no father. Why? Because even during his lifetime, father only gets it if she's actually being supported by him. It's not an automatic arrangement. If she is samach al shulchanai, then she gets supported. He gets her mitzvah. The Gemara says about mitzvah mishum eva, to avoid animosity. The kivin the eino chayev since technically a father doesn't really have to support his daughters while he's alive, because it's not a pirkin. So that being the case, she'll keep her findings. He's not going to want to feed her anymore. Look, how much money I'm spending on you, and you find something you can't even give that to me. Look, Haman pirkin nami ambrina, as the Gemara later says as well. Father gets his daughter's mitzvah to avoid Eva. So that's all good and well when father's around and supporting her. Aval, says Rashi, Achen. If there's no father and only brothers are involved, Al Karchayu Mitzanam and Nichsiav. In that case, they're not offering her mezainis. That's part of the Kesuba arrangement. So they don't deserve anything in return. So this halacha of Metzia is clear cut and obvious. Let's go back to the Gemara. Just as the Metzia, which during his lifetime goes to him, la'achar misasa, but after his passing, la'atzma, she certainly keeps it, as Rashi explained. Af masiyah, likewise, when it comes to earnings, nami. Here as well, b'chaye av la'av. While father is around, he gets her earnings. But la'achar misasa av la'atzma, after his passing, she keeps it. Shma mina, it's a raya. And that was Rav Yosef's kasha on Rav Sheshes. I'll bring you a raya from the wording of the Mishnah, the very fact that the Mishnah pairs together Masiyadeh and Metziasa. Even though, like we explained, the concept of collecting your earnings doesn't apply to a Metzia. You're not collecting it from anybody. So why would the Mishnah even mention it on the list? By Masiyadeh, it makes sense. You earned, you haven't yet collected, still it's been earmarked as going to the father. It's as though the father retained possession. He got those earnings. Now when he passes, it goes to the kids. But Metzia, you don't collect it. Until you have it, you don't have it. So how could it go to the father? The point of the Mishnah apparently was simply to draw a parallel, to tell you, just like by Metzia, it's only a lifetime privilege, but after his passing, she keeps her findings. The same with Masiyah Daim. Father's around, he gets it. Otherwise, skip the brothers. Itmer Nami, we have the same halacha stated by a different Amoira. Amar Vida Marav, Basan Mazonis Mena Achim, a sister, supported by the brothers. Masiyah de la Atzma, she keeps her earnings. Amar Rav Kahana, my time. Why? The Chesiv, the pasuk says, V'is nachaltem oisam levneichem achareichem. We're speaking about avodim Kanaanim, non-Jewish slaves. Pass them on to your children. They are part of your estate. It's like your possession. Pasuk uses the word oisam to stipulate oisam levneichem. Only the avodim are handed down to your children. V'lo bnei seichem levneichem, but not your daughters. It's not something you hand and you pass over. Magid, we learn, a person does not hand over, does not pass on the privileges that he had in his daughter. Doesn't get passed on to his son. Maskefla Rabba. I understand that these privileges cannot be passed on. Which privileges? Perhaps we're speaking about the rights to collect the payments for the mafata, the knases, the chavalis, her injuries, all those payments which a father would collect. Perhaps that is hakasab madaber. That's the topic of the pasuk. That you don't pass on to children. Just because a father has these rights, that doesn't go on to the kids. But, says Rashi, Masya Daim, which is something which is so common, her regular earnings. And keep in mind, they're sort of laying out money for her. They're feeding her. Perhaps this is different. And perhaps they should get her earnings. V'chein Tana Rav Chanina. B'piti Abbas. V'knosis v'chavalas. Akasav Medaber. In fact, Rav Chanina held that way as well. Some things don't get passed on to the sons. But Masya Daim, they deserve it. Now the Gemara is going to ask a side point. We say the knas, the mefata, those payments are dafka to the father. And also chavalas, her damages, her bodily damage, payments to compensate for that. Chavalas, tzara de gufaninu. Chavala, bodily injury, that's personal pain, personal tsar. That goes to the victim, to the daughter herself. That's never given to a father. Why would that be paired together with other payments? Amar Rav Yisbar Chanina was speaking about a chavala which affects the father, and therefore he's deserving of it. Shepatza b'fanel, this fellow injured her in her face, in a visible spot, in which case the father sort of lost income because of that. He can no longer, sell her, etc. So in that case, a father will be deserving of that payment, and that's the chavoles that we're speaking about. That's belonging to the father, and that's going to get passed on to the sons. So bottom line is we have a big machlokes. Father passes on. There are sons supporting his daughter. What happens to her Masya Daim? We have machlokes between Rav Sheshes, who says, "You support me, you get my earnings." Rav Yosef disagrees. Rav disagreed. Amar Rav Zera, Amar Rav Masna, Amar Rav. Amrila, some say Amar Rabbi Zera. He was called Rabbi Zera before it was Rav Zera. Rashi says, let's see Rashi inside, on the second line from the top. Amar Rav Zera. Amrila, Amar Rabbi Zera. It's the same person. Who Rabbi Zera, who Rav Zera. Rav and Rabbi Zera are the same person. El Bavel depends on the the era. When he was still in Bavel, Mekamid Salak La'arad Yisrael, before he traveled up to Yisrael, Kamed Rabbi Yechon, to learn Rabbi Yechon. Ve'en Smicha Bavel, and Bavel they didn't do Smicha. See, the title Rebbe was not applicable. Havokar Rav Zera. There they called him Rav Zera. And then when he came to Yisrael, he got a Smicha, and he was called Rebbe Zera. Uba Shmaita. And regarding this halacha that we're learning here, some maintain that he said the halacha before his smicha, when he was Rav Zera. Some say he said it after his smicha, when he was already Rebbe Zera. Okay, so what did he say? Still more on the top line. Amar Rav Zera, Amar Rav Mas, Amar Rav. Some say Amar Rebbe Zera, Amar Rav Mas, Amar Rav. Bas, even though the daughter is being supported by her brothers, Mas Yadel Atzma, she keeps her earnings achsiv, based on that pasuk that we learned. The avodim are meant to be passed on to their children, to your children. Only the avodim get passed on. As opposed to passing on your daughters. Magid, we learned a person does not pass on the financial privileges that he had regarding his daughter. It's not passed on to his son. Amalei Avimi bar Papi. So Avimi told Rav Zera, Shekoid Amra. Are you quoting this halacha in the name of Rav? It was Shekoid. Shekoid Manu. Who is this Shekoid? Actually, he was Shmuel. Why was he called Shmuel? Says Rashi, 8 lines from the top. Shmuel Havakorle Shekoid. Why was he called Shekoid? Al Shum, because the Hilchos Kavasei B'Dinim, when it comes to Dinim, we paskin like Shmuel. V'Sheked Al Dvarav L'Oimrim K'Halacha. He was conscientious, focused to say his words consistent with the Halacha L'Maisa, and that's why he's called Shekoid. So it's not Rav, it's Shekoid who said this Halacha. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? Harav Ramar. Rav was the one who said the Halacha. Ema, rather say, Af Shekoid Amra. In addition to Rav, Shmuel as well concurred with this Shita, that what? That the Masi Yadayim remain in her hands. Amar Marbar Meimal Ravashi, Hachi Amri Nardoi. In Nardoi they say, Hilchasik was there Sheshus, we follow Rav Sheshus' Shita, that it goes to the brothers. Ravashi Amar, Hilchasik say the Rav, Hilchasik of say the Rav, we follow Rav's Shita, Hilchasik of say the Rav, and that's the conclusion of the Gemara. We follow Rav's opinion that the Masi Yadayim of the daughter stays in her own hands. Continues the Mishnah, Ma'aris es Bita v'Girsha. This fellow got his daughter engaged. And of course, we're speaking that she's either a Ktana or Nara, so she's still in his domain to engage her to a man. V'Girsha, and then this man divorced her. So she never actually got married. Engaged, divorce. Irsevenis Armla, engaged, and then husband passes away. In both cases, Kesubos Shalai, the Kesuba payments go to the father because she never left his possession, so to speak. See, any earnings are funneled to the father. But he's Siyav Girsha, let's say, he married her off, in which case she totally left his domain, and then she got divorced, he's Siyav Armla. And then he married her again, and she became a widow. Kesubos Shalai, the Kesuba payments go to her because once he marries her off, he loses any rights in collecting her earnings. That's the Tanakama Shita. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Harishena Shalav. In the first case, so it says happened one case after the other. The same Isha who went through all these experiences: marriage, divorce, marriage, widow. In the first case, the Ksuba goes to the father, Harishena Shalav. You know why? Because at that point, meaning when they actually, committed, when he actually committed to pay her the Ksuba, it was still before he married her, right? And at that point, she was still in her father's rishus. So even though the actual Ksuba payment occurs way later when he, it passes on after he already married her, post-marriage, in which case she's no longer in her father's possession, doesn't matter because the Chiyuv was triggered before the marriage when she was still her father's daughter. Amrullah, the Chacham responded, no. Mishi is Sia, once he marries her off, he loses her. Ein Lavia Rishuspa, he no longer has any rights to collect any payments, and therefore, even though the Ksuba was written prior to marriage, when she was still his, so to speak, we follow the point of collection, which happened later. Now the Gemara is going to make a side point, a diuk in the Mishnah. The way the Mishnah presents the sequence, it happened like this: marriage, divorce, marriage, death. The Mishnah was actually very particular in the way it presented the story. You know why? It only works because she married and divorced. Then she married again and got nisarmel. Husband dies. But the Mishnah purposely avoided presenting it as a double death. Marriage, death, marriage, death. You know why? Because in that case, she wouldn't be able to remarry again. Why? She has a track record that her husbands pass away. So the Mishnah wanted to avoid that type of negative connotation. And sort of by the way, the Mishnah was teaching us this point as well, because Sasam Lantana Rebbe, the Mishnah, presented an anonymous opinion in accordance with Rebbe Shita, who says, how much do you need for a track record? Twice. Once is a chance, and twice is an established reputation. The Amar who says, Betrei Zimni have a chazaka, once you have a recurring experience once and again, that establishes a chazaka, and in this case she wouldn't be able to remarry. We avoided any reference to this type of situation. Rather, we spoke about marriage, divorce, marriage, death. So we never have two deaths in a row. Rabbi Yehuda maintains the first ksuba goes to the father, even though she only collects it after marriage. My time to Rabbi Yehuda, why will the father get it? Rabbi of Rav Yosef, the Amrit Havai, they both explained, because the father already attained rights to the ksuba payments at the point of engagement. So even though the collection actually only takes place post-marriage, but the chiyuv, the schus, was activated at that early point, at the point of erison, when she was still in his domain. Masiv Rava, he has a kash on this pshat. You're telling me that the father is zoich at the point of erison, and therefore we're only concerned about whose rishus she is at that point of erison. Listen to this brayse. Rabbi Yehuda himself says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, harishayna shalav. The ksuba the first time around goes to the father. Now, Umayd Rabbi Yehuda would agree in the following case that he does not get it. Mamaras is pitek, she tana. Suppose he engaged her as a tana, she was still in his possession. Ubagra. After an engagement, she becomes a bageris. She leaves his rishos. And then she marries. And then something happens, she collects the ksuba. She'ein lo avia rishus, but father doesn't get the ksuba. That's Rabbi Yehuda speaking. Now, according to you, this is a very difficult halacha. Amai, why doesn't he get it? Hachinami, in this case as well, let's say, what was she at engagement? Aktana. At that point, the father is zeicha. The fact that she became a begeris during the engagement period is irrelevant. Father was already zeicha when she got engaged. So apparently that cannot be the pshat in Rabbi Yehuda. It wouldn't work with this case. Rather, we learned as follows. Why does Rabbi Yehuda maintain that a father who married his daughter off will still collect her ksuba payment, which is collected post-marriage, when she's no longer his? Not because he was zoicha at erison. That doesn't work. Rabbi, Rav Yosef, Amit Havai, they both explain, when is the ksuba written? When does it become an established fact? When does it turn into a shtar? When does it become formally legalized? Right before the Nasun, at the end of the engagement, they sit down, they write the shtar ksuba. At that point, the father is zeicha. But if she became bekeres between engagement and marriage, and by the time they sat down to write the ksuba, she was already a begeres out of her father's domain, then he loses that ksuba. So both halachas work perfectly well. He engaged and married her off, and then she gets divorced. Her father gets the ksuba. Why? Because they wrote the ksuba when she was still engaged, and still like Tana or a Nara, and still in his possession. But if she becomes a begeres and then they sit down to write the ksuba, he has no rights to that ksuba. Apparently, the Chachamim disagree. It's Talin Basar Guvaina, the point of collection. That's what triggers that's what determines, the ownership and rights of collection. When she collects the ksuba, at that point, she's no longer his because she had been married and out of his rishus. That's machlokes between Tanakam and Rav Yehuda. Now, it's pretty clear from our Gemara that even though technically a man is already obligating himself in the ksuba obligation at the point of erison, but in terms of it becoming formalized, that only happens when they actually sit down and record and they write down the ksuba. So even Rabbi Yehuda would agree to that, right? So now comes another question. Umigba me'imas gavi. From what point does she have a zchus to collect? Meaning, this fellow engaged her, then, right before the marriage, They sit down, they formalize the ksuba into writing. He marries, something happens 10 years later, she has to collect the ksuba. He has no assets, no properties, but he sold some properties during the engagement period, meaning in that sandwich period, after he was already chayiv the ksuba midrabanan, but before he actually formalized it into a legal document. Is there a lien imposed on his properties at that early point or not? Can she collect from those properties or not? She can certainly collect properties that were sold after the ksuba was written and the chayvus was formalized. But what happens at that early point? There's a chayv ksuba, but it's not yet formalized into writing. Can she collect those properties that were sold at that point? From when can she collect? The basic ksuba obligation, 100, 200, given in, for the amon on the besula, that basic chiyuv, that starts from an erison, from engagement. But the sefes ben soon, but the extra that a husband would add, you add to the 100, 200, add $100 million, right? So that's not a basic requirement. It's not a basic obligation. So that only happens, that only gets activated when they sit down to write the ksuba, and he accepts upon himself that extra chiyuv. Okay, that's a fair deal. The basic ksuba payment starts from the erison, when that chiyuv was activated, but the teisefes, the add-on, only happens later. For Rav Asi Omar, he disagrees, whether this payment or that payment, min anisuin, it starts from marriage. Rashi explains, because although he's chayiv from erison, but once they sit down to write, she's sort of meichel. Let's start fresh. And the shibud, the chiyuv, the obligation starts fresh, going forward. She no longer has any claims going back to erison. Umi Amar Rav Huna Hachi. Is that so? That according to Rav Huna, we split the ksuba. Basic starts from erison, and advanced additions, add-ons, supplements are tied to the nesuin. Umi Amar Rav Huna Hachi. V'itma, we learned Haitzia Olav Shtei Kesubos. For some reason, this fellow wrote a double ksuba. Achas Shomosayim. First, he sat down to write a ksuba, obligating himself the basic 200. And then a week later, he wrote another ksuba, Achas Sholosh Meyes, containing an obligation of 300. Rav Huna tells us she has a choice. You can't collect on both, but one or the other. Bosa Ligmois Mesayim. She chooses to use the earlier ksuba. Perhaps some properties were sold, in between the two ksubas. So she wants to go back to the earlier date to collect from then. Goiva, fine. She can collect the 200. Mizman Rishon, starting from the earlier date. Sholish Meyes. She chooses to go with the second ksuba with the 300. Goiva Mizman Sheni, but she can only collect based on the later date written on the second shtar. So it's either or. It's up to her. You want to gain the earlier date, but it's 200. You want to collect 300, but you're stuck with the later date. If it is so, that according to Rav Huna, you can sort of split it. Here as well, Tigbi Masayim is Manrishan. Take 200 from the first date. Umeyim is Man Sheni. And the extra 100, which is really Teisefes Ksuba, that you have to wait for the second date. So why is it either or? The basic Ksuba obligation relates to the first date. Teisefes, okay, that comes later. According to you, what do you mean to ask? Let's reckon with both shtaris? You can't. Because look, Tigbi Chamesh Meyes. Why don't you ask a better question? Tigbi Chamesh Meyes Kulam. Why can't she collect all 500? 3 and 2. Masayim is Manrishan, 200 from the first time, plus Meyam is Mansheni, and 300 based on the second date. Why'd you ask me that? Ella, apparently that's not a kasha. Chamesh Meyes, my time Gabi. You know why she can't collect 500? Because either or. He never meant to add the 300 to the 200. He sort of wrote another star instead of the first star, right? Kiva de loy Kesubos, since he didn't write it to the second star, the following words, which would indicate that he's adding it to the first star, he didn't write Tzeves Tzevisi, I was willing, Vaisifis Loch, and I added Tlos Meya, a Messiah, the 300 over the 200. He didn't write that. Apparently, he was just trying to say as follows. I'll give you a choice. You already have a star for 200. I want to give you 300. But I want you to retain all your rights based on the first day and the earlier date. So I'm giving you a choice in the matter. I'm going to write you another star. You'll decide which one you want to use. Because really he just wants to give her 300, not 500. Imazman Rishon Gavias. If you choose to work with the first date, Gavi Masayim, you collect 200. Imazman Sheni Gavias. If you work with the second date, Gavit Lasmei, you'll collect 300. Oh, so once you've answered that question, you've answered your question as well. Hachanami, here's what when it comes to your question, which was, why can't we just split it? 200 from the first date, and the extra 100 from the second date. The reason is, the loy gavi, that you can't collect in this manner, but the loy kasav lo isifes lach mea masayim. Since he didn't say, I'm adding 100 over the 200 that I wrote you earlier, right? He gave her a star for 200, and then he gave her a star for 300. Since he didn't stipulate that this extra 100 is really an add-on to the earlier 200, he didn't write that. So that seems to indicate that he was writing two separate stories. Either or. Either use the first one with all its advantages and disadvantages, or the second one. She was giving up that first shibud, her first claim, meaning she pretty much accepted the choice. She accepted the offer. I'll decide if I want to use the first star, although it's a lower amount, but it has the advantage that it originates before, it has an earlier date. Or I'll use the second star, which has a greater amount, but it's a later star, which puts me at a disadvantage regarding the customers who may have purchased properties in the interim. But he never meant to add the second onto the first. It's either or. Either this track or this track. As opposed to our story in the Gemara, where it's just the one basic ksuba. He marries an isha, writes a ksuba that contains the the basic amount, the 200, and he says, look, I want to add all this and that and the other thing. It's not either or. The basic amount pertains to the Ikar Takanas Chachamim, which perhaps gets activated and triggered and implemented at the time of Erison. And the Tosefes is something I want to add right now. I'm offering that from this moment going forward. Okay, so what do we learn today? Typically, the Masya, dime of a daughter, goes to her father. Just as the Metzia, and the Knosses, and the Chavalis. What about if she's a Yisayma? No father, just brothers, who are supporting her. Rav Shesha says they get her Masya Daim. Rav disagrees, and that's the Halacha L'Maisa. All agree. Metzia, Knosses, Chavalis would never go to the brothers, rather she would keep that. Pasuk says, an Eved gets passed on from generation to generation, but not a daughter. These privileges are unique to the father and nobody else. What about collecting on his daughter's ksuba? He marries her off, and then she gets divorced. And Akama says she keeps the ksuba payment because the actual collection occurs after she had already left his domain. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees because the shas ksiba of that ksuba was still when she was with her father, and therefore he collects on that. So we learned that the chi of ksuba really starts at Erison, but they actually implement it and formalize it in writing at the point of marriage. So let's say there's a question of being goive from the kuchais, collecting, extracting, properties that were sold by her husband. What's the starting date for that? Schus? Rav Huna says the Ikar Ksuba starts from Erison, Tosefes from the Sun. Ravasi says no. It's all based on the Sun. That's when it was formalized and put into writing. her schus kviya begins at the date of the Kesubos Ashtar by Nisuin. All the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.